Hello and welcome to the vlog. If you saw the last one, you'll know that at Middlewich I didn't turn left down the Middlewich branch of the Shropshire Union Canal, which was part of the plan. Instead I headed on through Middlewich. The reason for that is that 9 miles north of here, or thereabouts, is the Anderton Boat Lift, one of the amazing canal structures which, while I'm here, I really ought to have a go on. So the plan for the next couple of days is go 9 miles north, have a go on the boat lift, come back and then turn on to the Middlewich branch of the Shropshire Union Canal. It's not the most promising day for travel, grey and miserable overhead. Soon after setting off I go past this wide open spot of canal, but be warned, away from the main channel which veers to the left, it's really shallow, hence the warning signs. Further on, there's a lot of overhanging vegetation, which gives the effect of a green corridor. It's rather nice. It's starting to rain by this point, and I go past an offside mooring spot with picnic tables, which would be lovely in the sunshine. Some parts of the canal are a little overgrown though, and could do with a strim. A sunken boat is always a terribly sad sight. Once this was someone's pride and joy, now rotting in 4 feet of water. Sorry about the raindrops, it really was drizzling and getting worse. Here's another warning about another of those very inviting but very, very shallow open stretches. This is Croxton Flash, which sounds like a great name for a TV news reporter to me. It's also a lovely place to moor, as you can see. When I came back this way later, I saw a hire boat get very, very badly stuck on these shallows, with another boat kindly tugging him off. Can't have a canal video without a swan and her young. Along here there's a fair few of these planning notices about the HS2 rail link, which will rather ruin the peace and tranquility. We're just a little south of Northwich at this point, and there's a newish marina on the left. A fair few boats in there, one of which I recognise from Twitter, and a fair few spaces left as well. Another set of private moorings and another marina sit on the right as we head up towards and through Broken Cross. It's getting really rather rainy now, and I'm getting damp and soggy at the back. Not too soggy to stop me filming this massive crane which is lifting something in or out of this chemicals factory through the roof. There's a saltworks museum on the left here, but I suspect the reason it's a popular mooring is really for the salt barge pub. Unbelievably, there's another half-sunken boat here, a GRP cruiser this time, looking very forlorn. Did I mention it's raining? You'll notice I've stopped filming with the camera at the back, it's just too damp. So, a couple of miles short of the boat lift, I decided to call it a day. There are mooring rings in the concrete here, so it's an ideal place to tie up. What a beautiful contrast to yesterday. The sun is shining, the solar is already pulling in about 21 amps, which is fantastic. The Anderton lift is about half a mile round the corner, so I shall now set off for that. I've started the engine, so while it warms I'll untie the bow and stern lines, push the front out a bit and head off. Just round the corner is this services point, so a very quick stop here to empty the loo, as it's always worth doing when you get the chance. Then straight on and heading past a couple of marinas, one on the left, one on the right. If you've ever wanted to try boating, but a week's hire is too much, you can rent by the day. Round the corner you go past these lovely houses with private moorings on the right, and there's 24-hour public mooring on the left, also a very nice setting. The object of my visit is under that bridge on the left, and you moor up just after those railings where there's a visitors centre and booking office. But disaster. Unbelievably, it turns out that a really popular visitor attraction is really popular, especially on nice days, so all the lift passages today have been fully booked. Since the signs were clear that I couldn't just stop there overnight, a swift reverse was necessitated, not this swift, a turn at the handily provided winding point, and heading back to moor for another night. Of course, now I'm pointing away from the lift, so if I am to try again tomorrow, I need to turn round again, and the next winding hole is a couple of miles. But there is this rather wide bit of canal, which I was assured by another boater is sufficient to turn a boat up to 60 foot long or so. So with one small and careless bang into the concrete, I did a U-ey and went back to moor again. Should be fine tomorrow. I handed over a tenner to guarantee a trip. Good morning. Let's try this again. And since I'm going past the services again, I might as well empty the cassette, even of just one day's use. Back past the marinas, and easing on to the temporary moorings for lift traffic behind this other craft that will be joining me. But you may be asking, what is the Anderton Boat Lift? It's this, built in 1875, a giant elevator that takes boats from the canal to the River Weaver below, and vice versa, transporting them in, effectively, 2 giant bathtubs. Boats first come over this link bridge and drive into the tubs, which are then lowered on massive hydraulic rams. One goes up while the other goes down. The whole thing closed in the 1980s because of rust, but was restored and reopened 15 years ago. While we wait for the staff to let us on, let's take a quick look at the unusual boat ahead of me. Built by Atlas Cruisers in 1968, it's an iron hull with a steel superstructure that is simply resting on the hull through gravity. The boat was once sunk, but the current owners raised and rebuilt it. The main sleeping cabin is at the back, and the wheelhouse is in the middle. Apparently, the craft is very slightly wider than a typical narrowboat, which makes going through some of the narrow locks quite the challenge. Power comes from a whopping great Mercedes diesel engine with no shortage of oomph for river work. Just as I finished admiring it and chatting with the owners, the lift staff came out. Okay, we've had a quick briefing from the Canal and River Trust guy, and now I'm following the other boat in. We'll do this at high speed, else we'll be here all day. Left under the bridge, and you're directed into one of the 2 channels which lead to the lift itself. To start with, you just go under that metal gate and then pause while they close it behind you. The friendly bloke who was operating it made sure we were safe and knew what was about to happen. There's plenty of time at this point to admire the view of the River Weaver below, or admire the neighbour's dog, who was lovely. Then they raise the gate ahead so you can drive into the giant bathtub that will take us down. Each of those tubs, or caissons as I believe they're called, weighs over 250 tons. We're now in a giant tank, in mid-air, being held up by a single ram. I'll show you that in a minute. The end of the caisson is slotted into place, watertight obviously. Meanwhile, you're required to tie on, albeit loosely, at the back. With the caisson end in place, the descent can begin. Alongside is where the parallel caisson will rise as we go down. It's more dramatic, perhaps, seen from this angle. Don't peer over the side if you don't like heights. Above, maintained for historical interest, although no longer used, the gears, cogs and shafts that were part of an electric mechanism that was installed in 1908 to replace the original hydraulics, though it now uses hydraulics again. I love Industrial Revolution engineering. It's all iron and bolts and rivets and weight. You might think that's going up, but in fact we're going down. It does look as though all that holds us are some wires and shackles, while the rust on the cross braces does nothing to improve the perception. But look to the side where the other caisson's going up, and you can see how they're supported, namely on a giant pole over 100 feet long and 3 feet in diameter. At the bottom, just a big hole where the ram is fixed into the ground. We're going down on the same sort of thing. This is the weirdest sensation, not least because when you start moving, you feel the whole carriage in which the boats are sitting giving these little bounces. It becomes smoother as it goes down, but when it starts off, it's bounce, 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 bounce. It's very odd. Here's the descent at several times real speed. "50 feet up, the old winding gear seen in all its glory." And now the reverse of coming in. The water levels are equalised, the gates opened, and we can drive out onto the river. It's quite the spectacle for gongoozlers, more so on a sunny day. Round the corner, and there's a trip boat on the left, while I'm aiming for the visitor moorings directly ahead. I haven't time to go down the river, so all I'll do is stop, look around a bit and go back up. That's me on the front of those moorings. Not a bad view. And then one of those weird canal coincidences. This boat behind me, with an amazing paint job, is one that I bumped into, literally but very gently, when I got a bag round my propeller a year ago outside Yelvertoft. Nice chap owns it and has a lovely dog, so we had a good old chinwag and a catch-up. Sorry, didn't get any video of the dog. Fake grass on the transom. I like it. OK, let's potter around the Anderton Lift Visitor Centre, which has both an outdoor section with information about the history and redevelopment of the lift, as well as an indoor exhibition space, cafe and souvenir shop. These are bits from the original lift mechanism which weren't used when it was restored and put back together. Press pause on the video if you want to read all this. And this is the exhibition space, which I enjoyed. Outside, a message I think we can all agree with. It's now 1:45. My upward passage on the lift was booked for 1:50, so any moment now, presumably, the lift keeper will be along to get us to start our engines and work our way round the corner and into the lift. Round the corner, a sharp bend but loads of space, and into the lift. I'll show that once again from the back of the boat, because approaching the lift is such a splendid sight. Up we go, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. Past the other caisson now coming down. Wait a minute, didn't I see that at Fradley? They're onto me! Run! Nice view, almost at the top. And the last few inches up. Now the water will be equalised, the caisson gate opened, and we can cross onto the bridge and then out onto the canal. So that was the Anderton Boat Lift. Very interesting. Now it's time to retrace my steps heading south back to Middlewich. But not before I do a good deed. This boat drifted out as I went past, and I saw his front mooring pin was hanging loose on its rope, so I very kindly stopped, ran back, dragged the boat back and banged his pin back in. That's a somewhat unusual figurehead. The weather's improved and the colours in the trees were truly stunning. On this tight corner, a lovely little tug, looking a little sad but rather sweet. And it had a rather unusual tender. Back at Croxton Flash, and I think I'll stop here. It's a fantastic spot. That's it for now. Cheerio.